Hey, how's it going? It's Keith Townsend from the CTO Advisory, and you're watching more coverage of VMworld 2019. We're in beautiful San Francisco, and I have with me Drew Schulke, VP
Correct.
of, what's the title? You're
Product Management of the Dell EMC Networking Business Unit.
So, now that we've got the formalities out of place, big announcements today at VMworld. We're seeing the Better Together story unfold. What was the announcements that they shared from stage today?
Yeah, great. We actually had two distinct announcements that we bundled together, so let me kind of tackle each one of them independently. The first was something we're calling the SD-WAN solution by Dell EMC. So for the past year, we've been working closely with the SD-WAN team within VMware. They came in with the Velocloud acquisition about a year and a half ago, and they're now in the networking and security business unit. And we've been working with them initially to optimize their hardware. So they have these edge gateways that they deploy out to support kind of those endpoints of the wide area network.
Right.
And so we've been working with them on their portfolio for that. But the conversations evolved to be something larger than that in terms of us actually packaging up an end-to-end wide area network offer for Dell EMC. So in addition to the edge devices that will have the SD-WAN software pre-installed on them, we as Dell EMC are going to get our own dedicated virtual cloud orchestrator. So when we sell this solution, we'll be responsible for setting up customers in that orchestrator, onboarding their edge devices into that orchestrator, and then behind that orchestrator we'll be tapping into the existing worldwide network of virtual gateways that VMware has deployed around the world. So all the wide area network connection points into the big public cloud operators, the Amazons, the Azures, the big SaaS providers like Salesforce.com, even like a YouTube, they've got this huge network of these cloud gateways and an over-the-top network that we're going to be able to tap into. So when we go to approach customers in the enterprise space and offer them an SD-WAN solution, we're bringing the benefits of Dell EMC on the hardware side of the house, so making sure that's purpose-built and optimized hardware, global supply chain, global support. We'll own the entire support experience inclusive of getting them onboarded into that wide area network. And if they have any issues along the way, be it hardware, be it software, be it the service that it's running upon, Dell EMC is that single throat to choke. So we're very excited about that one.
So let's break, that's a lot.
It is.
That's one announcement, right?
One, yeah.
So we'll break, we'll park the second announcement. Let's delve into this one.
Okay.
SD-WAN isn't hard per se, but what is hard is operations in general. So as simple as SD-WAN is the solutions on market, Velocloud isn't a very difficult solution to manage, but from a operations perspective, the one throat to choke thing is kind of important. Networks are built around or compromised from a technology versus operations piece around the relationships. So like no other part of our industry, the big incumbents are stationary and fixed, even if the technical solution isn't that great. Now what I've just heard is that Dell has entered a relatively new market for Dell.
Correct.
The wide area network has not been something that Dell has played in. I'm actually, for a customer, I'm deploying a set of Dell switches in the campus, in the data center, kind of where you play.
Yeah.
So if I hear correctly, you guys are entering the WAN space.
That's correct.
Not only are you entering the WAN space, you're going to manage that solution for me.
Yeah, in terms of getting you on board the orchestrator and setting you up and activating you in that wide area network. Now, what we're not going to do, unless you want to have that conversation with us, is, hey, here's the priority for my applications in terms of what I want their various quality of service to be, so that when I'm routing my traffic around that wide area network, I'm putting my business critical apps at the top of that priority and, streaming YouTube videos somewhere down lower than that. That's available to the customers once they get into the orchestrator, where they can set their own policies and so forth and monitor their performance and look at that. But we also want to have access to that as well, because if a problem does arise, if we don't have access to that and the edge devices and everything that's going on in the network, then it's really not, to your point, a comprehensive support model behind that.
So let's get to kind of the meat of the edge devices themselves.
Correct.
Is this displacing, or can this displace my current WAN solution? Like literally, like most of the SD-WAN solutions. So let's kind of cut to the chase. Most of the SD-WAN solutions say, you know what, we are complementary. I'm sure this would be complementary to some of the solutions out, but no. Will this solution cannot displace my incumbent WAN provider, network provider with this solution?
Yeah, very much so. And that's a conversation that we're having pretty consistently, because a lot of those incumbent WAN providers, the hardware and the service contracts that they have with those customers are actually coming up for renewal. And so it's an interesting time of this confluence of events of my service contracts are coming up for renewal, my cloud traffic is exploding. I mean, just think about the typical company or organization and the amount of time that the employees in that organization are spent accessing applications that are running either as SaaS or in the public cloud. I mean, think about the time you spend in Office 365, the time you spend in Workday, again, a SaaS application, Salesforce.com. All of the shift that's happening in that application space is just driving exponential cloud traffic. And so software-defined WAN provides an on-ramp to get to a much more cost-effective transport mechanism, which is broadband. And so, leveraging really expensive dedicated MPLS circuits to stream YouTube videos is probably not a good, investment of your OpEx dollars as an IT organization.
And I think one of the things that can get lost in the conversation around SD-WAN and vendors such as Dell EMC networking has been this conversation around cloud-first models. One of the things that I'm dealing with my client today is that they don't have a data center. And they kind of showed me their WAN design, pretty simple. And I asked them, why don't you have SD-WAN? And they were like, well, SD-WAN is for companies with data centers, and we don't have data centers.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't disagree more. I couldn't disagree more. I mean, look, you need to realize that they're cloud first, but I guarantee you they're multi-cloud.
Yes.
They're not pointing
Salesforce, AWS.
Exactly.
O365, Google.
And you want to have a dynamic system that's going to be able to route, and that's the great thing of what we're doing and working with VMware at a packet level. We're not about routing at a flow level, like at a packet level to guarantee that you're getting the optimal quality of service that you need out of whatever it is you're trying to talk to around the world. Cloud A, Cloud B, SaaS A, SaaS B. That's the great story here of really it's about the performance that your employees are going to get out of that cloud first application model, and you want them to be productive.
So we've trusted Dell in the data center. We've trusted Dell at the desktop. We've trusted Dell throughout most of my infrastructure. This is a new audience that you're talking to. Dell doesn't typically talk, even within networking. You kind of have the campus guys, you have the data center guys, and you have the WAN guys, and they have autonomy. Why should a Dell rep get time in with the WAN guy? Like, what's the story? Like, what's the hook?
Yeah,
to get them?
To be easy, it's real. So two things. One, the ability to move to a mixed model and eventually a full broadband model. Step one in moving to a mixed model, you can probably reduce your WAN transport cost by 50%. Moving to dual broadband, you can probably get it down 75%. We've got the numbers to prove this up. And even Dell IT has gone on this journey over the past year of implementing software-defined WAN, and that's the order of magnitude of savings that we're seeing in our transport costs. So I don't care who you're calling on in the customer base. When I start dropping down,
especially for WAN cost, which is a huge part of the IT.
And it's a fixed cost. I mean, we're writing huge checks every single month to support those circuits, right? I mean, that's immediate savings that you can recognize. So that's a pretty easy conversation to start with if you're talking to anybody, and certainly the CFO if you got his or her ear on that point in time. The other thing though is peel back the onion though. Yeah, it's a new space to us, but think about what it is that we're doing. These edge devices that are being deployed in all these remote offices and branch offices, at their core, it's an x86 device.
Right.
That we're optimizing for performance. We're building off of standard commodity-based memory and.
They don't know the thing or two about x86.
We know a little bit about how to make that really, really efficient, and we work closely with the software partners in VMware to make sure that we've optimized that configuration to support the appropriate bandwidths that they're going to need to support at those branch sites. So it's still playing to kind of our DNA as an infrastructure provider, right? We're not fabricating new silicon here, right? This is basic blocking and tackling for us from a hardware perspective.
So, second announcement.
Yeah, second announcement, as if that wasn't enough. We try to like keep us really, really busy here today. The second announcement is a product we're calling Smart Fabric Director. So this one has been a little bit over a year in the works, working again with VMware's Networking and Security Business Unit on this. It's a joint development, so we actually have Dell EMC and VMware developers writing code for what we announced today. And if I were to sum up what we're trying to solve here, it's bridging the divide between the physical network and the virtual network. And what I mean by that is, if we think about the advancement that came on with virtual networks and VMware NSX being the market leader in this space, we made it way easy to manage, provision a virtual network. Great insights, great visibility, analytics. But underneath that virtual network, there's still this physical underlay.
Yes.
And it's got to pass traffic, and it's going to have congestion, it's going to have CPU utilization problems, it's going to have memory overload. And it's still an integral part of the performance of the applications that are running on that virtual network at the end of the day. And so what we decided to do as Dell Technologies from a better together joint R&D investment is go try and tackle this problem. How do we bring these two things together? So Smart Fabric Director does a couple things. One, it provides a single interface into every switch that's in the underlay. So it can talk to individual switches, but does so under the construct that I'm trying to build out a fabric.
Right.
Okay? And so by building out that fabric, I can then present information about that underlay as a fabric northbound into solutions like vCenter, like vRealize Network Insight, like NSXT. And so it gives me visibility at the overlay level about what's happening at my underlay.
So this is a real pain. So, I'm torn because I'm a ESXi guy from one point in my career, and I was a network administrator, network engineer in another part of my career. So, from the ESXi perspective, virtualize everything, networking, storage, compute, doesn't matter. You standardize on protocols, and the protocols take care of themselves from a virtualization perspective. But in reality, in operating the network, I've been a network operator. The network flaps, it does stuff underneath. Packets get dropped, frames get overrun, CPUs get maxed out. Just the network is a complex beast. You can't simply virtualize that. You can't simply run a virtualization layer over that and say it's just going to work.
It's going to work, yeah.
These two servers that are virtualized talking to each other can take different paths.
That's right.
Even though logically it looks like the same to me. So how do I troubleshoot that when something goes wrong? When everything goes right, it's great. But when something goes wrong, how do I troubleshoot that? This is a solution aimed at solving that operational problem.
Bingo, you nailed it. Yeah, well said. And the initial release that we're going out with, the 1.0, so to speak, which will be shipping here next month, it's really focused on, okay, I want to deploy a fabric that's optimized for NSX. So all those VLAN settings and so forth that you can get wrong, and setting up the transport VLANs and stuff like that, easy button, let's just go off and push that out. But the evolution of that over time, if you think about it, now I've got, I think, the conduit of knowledge is what I call it, between now that physical and the virtual. And step one is going to be passing deeper insights in terms of telemetry that's happening in the underlay northbound to be consumed by those VMware applications up there. They talked about something called NSX Intelligence this week, and the product that they announced, which is, think about a policy engine for NSX is the best way I can describe it based upon my understanding of it. But it's not too far of a stretch to start to think about, well, if I can pass information around, deep, insightful information about what's happening in the underlay north, and they have a policy engine and they can interpret that data and make decisions around what to do with the underlay, it's not too much of a stretch to think about what it is we can go off and do with this, and creating a deeply harmonized physical and virtual network that at some level becomes autonomous.
So what this fabric is basically allowing me to do is ask questions or ask questions to the data that previously I just didn't have. So if you're a photographer and you shoot RAW versus, compressed JPEG, you can do stuff in photography if you shoot RAW that you can't do if you shoot JPEG, because there's just more data. and you're sending that telemetry data up. So the fabric itself may not present the data in a way that you can view as actual, information or outputs. That's the function of a vRealize or NSX intelligence in the future, etc. These tools that can now ask more intelligent questions of the underlying data so that I can better manage my networks.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that is that's, I gotta admit, that's two big announcements, and I wish we had two different videos to kind of tackle this, because that's a lot of data.
It is.
Speaking of a lot of data, people want to know about the two different things. The portals, where do they go online to find out more about each one, or Dell networking? And Dell's a big company, so
yeah, really, DellEMC.com/networking. So we've got a full suite of information on the announcements that we've made there this week live, inclusive of a video of the general manager of the networking security business unit of VMware and my boss, the GM of the networking business unit at Dell EMC, sitting down and jointly explaining some of these offers, as well as a bunch of other collateral out there. So DellEMC.com/networking, bookmark it, check it out. Lots more information.
And I provided, we've had the GM of the NSBU on the program before. We'll provide a link. Super fun guy. He's done some really interesting stuff with open source and switching in the past. So
yeah.
VMware is leveraging a lot of that knowledge with now Dell Technologies with hardware. This is a great example of a better together story. And I've been critical of kind of the buddying up of this, but when Dell acquired VMware and EMC, the first thing I asked for was NSXT on a Dell switch. This is a step forward in that direction. Not quite that, but I'm a networking guy. You can tell that I'm a little geeky and excited about that, so forgive me. That's it for this episode of the CTO Dose. If you want to follow the conversation, hashtag CTO Dose on Twitter, LinkedIn. You can interact with me and the ecosystem around these announcements. You think they're great? You think there's room for improvement? Share your thoughts online. Talk to you next CTO Dose.